Welcome to the Canadian political scene. Stephen Harper once said Canada wouldn't run deficits, but in turn has managed the largest in recent history.
Yesterday, I think I was asked one question about whether we would run a deficit, and I said no. That's my answer.
How far would you extend that? Just watch me.
You've said, in fact, that there won't be a recession in Canada. Frankly, I find that extraordinary. If our closest trading partner, this immense country, goes into a serious recession, you really don't seriously believe, do you, that we can avoid it?
Well, Craig, first of all, I'm not pulling this out of my hat. You know, my view is that given what we know, given all the data we have, that notwithstanding that we will continue to have slow growth, I believe we will avoid a recession.
Let me continue with my skeptical view of a couple of things you've said. The other one is, we'll never have in your government a deficit. If we go into a slowdown, your revenues are going to crash all over the place. How are you possibly? Nobody really believes you can avoid a deficit.
Well, so far,
and you're not going to tell me what you're going to cut.
No, but Craig, so far with the slowdown we've had, we have remained on track. In fact, so far this year, our revenue stream and our budget is actually in a better position than we projected. We've done this very conservatively.
No, but are you saying then, just to get this clear, no deficit, never deficit?
We are not running a deficit. We have planned a realistic scenario. We've got conservative budget estimates. We've got a modest platform that doesn't even fill the existing fiscal room that we have, and we have plenty of flexibility in how we phase it. So that's our policy. We're not going to go into deficit.
That was Stephen Harper in an interview just 2 days before the 2008 election. An election where he gained seats on the idea of fiscal prudence. Harper has spent a lot of time trying to convince you his government has a firm hand on the wheel. It turns out a month is all it takes to turn a rosy election outlook into a budgetary massacre. By the end of the 2008 fiscal year, Ottawa struck a $53 billion deficit after squandering a $13 billion surplus in under 2 years.
Hi, and thanks for joining us. The signs of a shrinking economy are everywhere. Savings and investments have been wiped away. Employers are starting to cut jobs. Monthly budgets are being squeezed. And for the first time today, our Prime Minister admitted Canada may already be in a recession. Stephen Harper distancing himself from the relatively rosy outlook APEC leaders have come up with in Peru. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Jacques Bourbeau is at the summit in Lima tonight with the details on that. Jacques.
Sophie, APEC leaders ended their two-day summit with a defiantly optimistic prediction. They believe the current financial crisis will be resolved within the next year and a half. It's one of the few light moments at this APEC summit, the 21 leaders posing for a group photo dressed in traditional Peruvian poncho. But at their meetings, the mood was much more somber, leaders trying to find ways to cope with the economic crisis. Yet, despite all the grim news, they issued a statement predicting the world economy will recover within 18 months.
We are going to beat the crisis thanks to the support of the people.
An optimism not necessarily shared by Prime Minister Stephen Harper.
I think it would be premature to speculate on that kind of timeline. Obviously, we as governments are committed to acting as rapidly as possible.
But right now, there's little cause for optimism as this downturn gathers strength, forcing Prime Minister Harper to admit for the first time that Canada may already be in a recession. And Harper warns there could be even more bad news ahead.
Yes, I am surprised at this. I'm also further surprised, more importantly, by deflationary pressure that we're seeing around the world. This is a worrying development.
Harper says he's ready, if necessary, to stimulate Canada's economy by boosting spending and running a deficit.
Deficits are generally bad, but there are occasions in which deficits are not necessarily bad, but in fact they are essential.
Stephen Harper has argued for years that no government should run a deficit. But this crisis is so alarming, Harper says he has to be pragmatic, not ideological, as he tries to rescue Canada's economy.
Now, Stephen Harper's entire campaign and political career became based off of the perception that he is a prudent economic manager. Now, of course, a lot of the things he said in the past sounded very appealing. You know, the argument that Canadians would get to keep more of their earnings, that the government would spend within its means.
Government will not be raising taxes. We will not impose a carbon tax. We will not cancel planned tax reductions for business. We will not be running a deficit. We will keep our spending within our means. It is that simple. The alternative is not a plan. The alternative the opposition is offering is just the consequence of complete panic, and this government is not going to panic.
But it turns out that something went seriously wrong down the road because... Wait, you just gotta see this.
I think in terms of the education job, let me just be clear on that. I think we've done a good job at educating the public to the view that deficits are generally bad. We now may be in a period where we have to educate the public to a somewhat less simplistic view, which is that their deficits are generally bad, but there are occasions in which deficits are not only not necessarily bad, but in fact they are essential.
Did I hear that right? Did Stephen Harper refer to such a serious topic as the economy as a matter of educating the public? Well, that presents a double standard. All of a sudden, you can't fulfill what you preach, so you educate the public. Harper's failure on fiscal policy was outlined just days before this APEC summit.
Minister of Finance has been looking at a series of measures, careful measures, to try and preserve Canada's balanced budget position. Obviously, some of that depends on economic performance, but he has been looking at that. But look, if there's a worldwide agreement that we will engage in sufficient stimulus to do our part of carrying global economic demand, we will fulfill our part of that agreement. What we've got to be sure is if we do a short-term deficit spending as a deliberate policy, if we do that, we haven't settled on doing that, but if we do that, we will have to be able to demonstrate to Canadians that that those deficits will genuinely be short-term and cyclical, and we will come out of them quickly.
You can see why the Conservatives need an education plan, and that plan cost the Canadians a couple $1 million that many argue could have went to much better places.
Workers are being retrained.
We're getting ready for the future. The global economy is still fragile.
But we have a plan we can rely on. For me, it means I can put tax savings back into my business.
Now and in the years to come.
It means real progress. Canada's Economic Action Plan means I can start my career.
Means I can get modern equipment to grow my business.
And I can keep all my people.
It means we're building better roads.
And more competitive companies.
It means families are better off. The economy is moving forward.
We're banding together. It means that we're building an economy that's strong and built to stay that way.
So we saw that the Conservatives changed their minds about deficits, and as a result they unveiled a new education plan. It's no wonder the opposition was angry in 2008.
Prime Minister is the one who transformed a $13 billion surplus into a deficit. The parliamentary budget officer said today that, and I quote, "The weak fiscal performance to date is largely attributable to previous policy decisions as opposed to weakened economic conditions." Will the Prime Minister admit that even though his government is ideologically conservative, it is certainly not fiscally conservative?
So now, what do you think of the Conservatives' management of the economy? Are they right? Is it just a matter of educating the public? Or should the government actually be as accountable and as responsible as they once said it should be? If you like this video and want to see more, do subscribe to this channel. And for the most up-to-date controversy on the Canadian political scene, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Google+.
How far would you extend that? Just watch me.